It's a good afternoon again. Of course, the market picture has certainly been one to perhaps take a look at. Now, last year was a big focus on those tech counters. They seemingly did very well, the likes of Tencent, Alibaba, and even on the local front, we saw Naspers, of course, enjoying some positivity. On the United States' front, well, you even saw the likes of Tesla rise to big share prices. They're even helping Elon Musk become the richest man in the world then at present. So big gains over on that front. But what does that mean for this year? Will investors perhaps peter off a little bit, take a bit of a break? We'll certainly see how things fare. But one element that would help the market picture is certainly growth in China. And that seems to be one element that sort of has been secured then. The Statistics Bureau out in China confirming then that the fourth quarter of last year did indeed bring out some positivity when it comes to Asia's economy. Even their industrial output pretty much doing quite a bit as well. So aiding that economy to some betterment. And actually looking solid ahead of this year and perhaps expected to continue that rise and climb indeed. Japan's industrial output, though, remained pretty much unchanged for the most part. But let's take a consideration at how COVID-19 is still ramaging through the rest of the world, and yet some parts of the Far East then in Asia are certainly doing and faring a whole lot better. So it has meant that the market has moved in a fairly positive direction this morning out in Asia, particularly more than 1% gained out in Hong Kong, with the Shanghai Composite following a similar mark as well there. So some positivity indeed. A similar picture as well for the markets out in Europe, getting 1/3% gain for the DAX out in Germany. Well, it's a pretty flat but still positive stance then for the FTSE 100 out in London as well. As I said, the CAC 40 sitting pretty much in flat territory. Going on to the local index, well, we're 1/3% better off today. So it seems that positive sentiment is pushing up. If China continues to gain, perhaps we might see the rest of the world begin to get some sense of positivity as the industries begin to turn and get into motion. 63,737 points is the price of the all share at present. The biggest gainer then being the industrials, going up 1.2%. Again, as I've said, that the likes of Naspers do feature in that industrials board as well, and it takes up a big chunk of the JSE as well. So if this gains, there's a very high likelihood we'll see that picture, because consider the fact that the rest of this board is sitting in red then, with financials going down pretty much following suit as the banking counters fell off quite considerably as well. More than 0.5% loss for both gold mining and platinum mining, with resources following that trend as well. 0.8% weaker. South Africa's listed property market has certainly been suffering and continues to do so as well today. In terms of stocks that have gone higher, the likes of Truworths and Cartrack have taken up more than a 13% gain each today. So big gains over on that front, even though those are fairly low in terms of how much they're worth. Truworths at 41 Rand and 48 cents though, with 57 Rand then as well for Cartrack. Taking a look at the ones going down, Sun International has lost more than 3% today. Grindrod following a similar mark, 2.9% weaker. On to then the should I say currencies board then. Slight weakness then for the local currency. We're at 15 Rand 32 against the US dollar. Not really too much to thank on that front. A key element perhaps for the Rand this week will be that interest rates decision by the South African Reserve Bank. That's expected to happen on Thursday at 3 p.m. We'll of course have that for you live here on SABC News as well. Unlikely though to get any sort of movement. A cut is unlikely seemingly from Bloomberg and Reuters forecasts then, although there are a few perhaps who say that a cut is absolutely necessary. Let's consider that we have things like load shedding coming to the fore, which means that the local economy is still going to be unable to turn as quickly as one would have liked, which means that it's going to need a little more stimulus. But is monetary policy the right kind of stimulus for the economy at this stage? Does it not give a false sense of belief and hope then to the policymakers, that being government, that indeed there's some other way to fix the problem when they should be perhaps doing it? That might even be the sentiment of the message sent out. With the euro, we're at 18 Rand 50 then, with the British pound setting you back 20 Rand 76 cents. Slight strength for the Brent crude price. It still sits firmly above $55 a barrel there, while the gold price is at $1,833 a fine ounce, $1,077 a fine ounce then for platinum. Bright Kumalo is from Vestact Asset Management. It's a happy new year to you, bud, and good to hear from you then. Last year was all about the tech counters. Does that continue this year?
Look, I think it depends basically on, how fast are the different countries basically going to be able to vaccinate their populations, and who's going to get to two-thirds of the population vaccinated first. And those guys that get to that point, I can safely assume that if you get more people, especially that directly contribute in terms of, the actual economy, then the economy is going to take, a positive spin, based on how fast they can do that. Whereas here in South Africa, Treasury is still considering a tax hike, for example, to fund vaccines, or to use as a measure to consider as a possible mechanism, basically to fund that vaccine drive. It's not looking good for us. We have that problem of, we've politicized the vaccine. It's going to take a long time, basically, to get our people vaccinated. And on top of that, we still have our own ESCOM problems that you've already mentioned, where, we're seeing a lot of power cuts, which was already, an Achilles heel in the past 3 or so years. As a result, we haven't seen much economic improvement in those years. And, the pandemic has only made things worse. So delaying the vaccine as well is just, adding insult to injury.
Yeah, a lot of the stocks were battered and bruised early on in the year, and then sort of made that gradual recovery towards the end of the year in particular. Do you find that that is bound to continue? And which sectors would you perhaps look at for 2021 to say perhaps these are focus areas, if any at all, by that standard anyway?
Yeah, I think towards the end of, the third quarter, fourth quarter of 2020, worldwide stocks, since they always try to price in future risk, we were getting very positive news on, effective different vaccines. And as a result, the different markets were basically taking those news as positive news, and that has since continued since then, basically, until we've seen last week or 2 weeks ago when, protesters stormed the Capitol in the United States, and the market was somewhat shown a bit of gyrations from then. But in terms of businesses, that will continue to do well. For example, I'm still looking at those sort of entertainment stocks, the same technology companies that have been helping us work from home, entertain us from home, like gaming companies, for example. I think they will continue to keep their value at the absolute minimum, and maybe give us some good earnings to match, the eyeballs that they're getting, because we still going to work from home for a while, and because we're still also trying to accelerate those vaccine efforts into getting to about 2/3 of all those different countries to be vaccinated. But otherwise, in terms of turnaround stories, which is mostly what is going to be happening in South Africa, that's going to take a while, and I think the opportunity cost in being in South African stocks is still very high, considering we still have, like I said, the ESCOM problem and the vaccine problem. We're still arguing who should be getting the vaccine first. We've seen companies like Discovery getting a lot of backlash from social media, and other people basically saying that rich people can't get the vaccine first, for example. That's very classist, blah blah blah, etc. Whereas any efforts to get South Africans vaccinated is an effort to moving this country forward, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. You raise a very valid point. Obviously, it certainly will be quite a difficult year for Discovery to kind of set the path, if you want to call it that, on that vaccination road as well. So we'll certainly see how things fare there. Right, I know, you guys at Vestec aren't too keen or aren't friends of the resource counters, if you want to call it that. Would you still stay away from those? Have they run perhaps a little too hard of late? Do you think that there's perhaps maybe some room there, or is that still a sector that you perhaps wouldn't really be keen to get into long term?
Yeah, look, the resurgence of, those mining counters that you speak of has been spectacular. In terms of, opportunity costs for Vestec clients, we haven't lost out on much because, what we lost in mining, we've made in technology multiple times even, in some cases, except, things like rhodium, for example. There was a big opportunity that we've missed. But in terms of going forward, mining again, Vestact will be staying away from mining. It's too cyclical, and for now we haven't really lost out on much by staying away from mining companies. Maybe if we were, it would be a very big problem for us and our clients, but that hasn't been the issue, so we'll stay away from mining still.
Yeah. Quick bet on your side, do they cut interest rates or hold on Thursday?
This is a hard one, right? I mean, consensus says hold, so I hope that we're going to hold, on Thursday, but I guess we have to wait until we see what happens on Thursday. Because, I mean, looking at, our local problems as South Africa, we've got too many moving parts. I mean, we saw in the Zondo Commission, for example, the former ESCOM executive basically, putting the president in the line saying, insinuating basically that he was a corrupt guy. There's a conflict of interest by sitting on the board of Glencore and the board of ESCOM and, driving a narrative there. But there's just a lot happening on our front. So I wonder what, Treasury is going to do on Thursday. Yeah.
Also, as we head towards budget, of course, things get very intricate and very difficult as well to put together. Bright, appreciate the time though, but thank you so much again. Happy New Year. We'll certainly continue to chat to you throughout the year. So thank you so much for that conversation then. Bright Khumalo from Vestact Asset Management. Now,